All right, here we are. We want to take a look at this structure because it's the first military structure that we have seen in World of Warcraft so far. This one is a little bit different defense. It's much more strategically placed, and it's responding to the first-hand attack from the Kolkar. So this is going to have far different implications than the defensive architectures that we have seen in the Crossroads. Again, so it's gonna have much more priority in its defense than comfortability and any other function that the architecture usually performs. All right, here we go. Orc forward bunker, northeast Barrens, just past the Gorkar lines. Let's take a look at how Horde prepares for the frontline defense. The first thing I'm noticing, the entire bunker is sitting exposed to the flat terrain. No elevation advantage, no burn, no natural burn, which means you're relying entirely on walls for defense, which are not as great because they have combustible material like wood. There's one entry ramp, not bad in theory, but wide, unguarded, and fully visible from the valley. You want choke points or staggered layers, but this is just single shell design. So this is one of the very first few architectures that we come across that is acting as a defensive bunker. It is a bunker, but it has a different layer. So when we look closely for once, you'll start seeing that it is an orc architecture, but there is another layer they have added onto their architecture, and that's the tactical advantage layer, right? So when you start adding another layer to any architecture, the function changes, and the function sort of determines how it is formed. And you can see this in this architecture. You can see the representation of orc aesthetic, but you can see that it looks different than any other orc architecture that we have come across, and that's because of that additional layer of tactical. So granted that it is not, it's being built on a flat surface, there's no advantage from the terrain itself. However, the bunker isn't built above ground, and that's the genius part. It's dug in. That's no small task in barren terrain. Digging takes time, stone is a primary material here, so already we are dealing with more than just quick and dirty way of getting things done to prepare for an attack. The platform itself is a mix of timber and stone, with the upper floors being cantilevered over the dug out pit. Structurally, it's questionable. There's no clear tension members, no diagonal bracing. The load bearing logic feels improvised, and in a real siege, I don't know how long that would last. My main concern really with the structure is, let's take a look at the header here. So we provide this lintel that will support the load that is on the structure. However, wood is not as strong in tension. That's first. There's a lot of tension here, and it's supporting a lot of heavy material like stone. This is a very thick material, you can see from quick glance. It's very heavy material, and I'm concerned that this wood is not sufficient enough to hold this load. So that's my very first concern. The next concern, that this platform, the second floor of this bunker, is being cantilevered. There's no supports here. That this is, it looks like stone, but it would make more sense if it's some sort of metal that basically acts as a trim around this. But by looks of it, it looks like stone. It looks like there, you have a wood, and then you have the stone that's attached onto the wood, and that's like, how do you even achieve that? That doesn't make any sense. But it would make more sense if the whole thing either came in a stone slab, because then it acts naturally well in tension. Obviously, you have to provide post here, probably better done with the stone. Very similar to the concept they have for the walls here. So you have your stone walls. They are really good in compression. So placing that here would provide a lot of advantage. Or it could just be wood. We know we did talk about the fact that wood is a combustible material, but it is far lighter. Condition like this where you gotta prepare for an attack really fast, wood will probably the best material, but combination of wood and stone here doesn't make sense. So that's the next part to this. So this cantilever doesn't work, but you can see it from here. They're sort of warping or curving the wood around, which again, I'm not sure how that's possible. Let's make a few speculations. I'm gonna give everybody a benefit of doubt. I'm gonna just say This is a metal trim. This is a metal trim all around. That makes sense. We know orcs are really well versed in using multiple materials, especially like you can see the metal on here. Um, so I'm gonna assume that this also is a metal, and that actually protects the wood edges, right? And also it protects it because it gives it less combustibility. All the foundation walls are stone, and that makes even more sense. Stone does fantastic in compression, which can support the load of the wood. So this detail makes so much sense. So you have your foundation stones built up to here, and here you're using a single face stone, and you have like a ledge here, and the ledge will provide a place for your wood to sit on. And you can see this profile run around. So you'll basically place that stone all around your wall, and then you'll just bring your piece of wood, and it will give you that support for that wood. Now the next part to this is, how do you support these ends here? It doesn't make sense, right? Like, that's what I'm saying, that you need to have at least a post here, or at the least have a beam that you can run from there, like a wood beam, just run it across, and that way you have a way to support this and even this, and then you can have one beam that runs across here, and that will actually be sufficient enough. So one beam, two beam, those are larger beams, and then you'll have smaller beam run in this direction, and that way you can just cut your wood somewhere else, bring it here, and just basically place it at the ledge that's created here and on top of the beam, and then you just basically plank it all up, and then you'll automatically have a nice way of, like, yeah, so if I can just draw it here, you'll have beam, 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 and then you'll have stone, and you just basically put your wood planks running from the stone edge to the beam, and you have a perfectly stable structure. Yeah, I think I'm gonna just give them a benefit of doubt that this is metal. It's not. You can tell from the seams, from the cracks, that it's a stone. And that's a funny part. Even as a designer of this bunker, I'm talking about Blizzard particularly, they've done a beautiful job. See how they're protecting the edge of the wood with the metal? That's how it should be. That's how it should be. So that would work fantastically. But where it shines is how it controls the axis. The perimeter is ringed with spikes, not decorative, they're functional, they prevent climbing or flanking from any direction, but one stairs. That's actually intentional. The single staircase acts as a funneling choke point. That's so smart. And combined with the defender's position behind the stair path, it creates kind of a invincible ambush angle. The attacker comes up exposed. The defender, if smart, if he plays his defensive position correctly, when the access point is compromised, he goes behind, and he basically stays tucked in. And as people come up, he attacks from their blind spot. Furthermore, the top of the platform, you'll get like a full 360-degree view. That's critical. You can see not only the direction of the frontal approach, but also the rear axis. So if someone tries to flank or slip through the coal car ridge, you'll see it coming. And because of the way the stair intersects with the platform edge, the person in the bunker can prioritize their attack, clear the stair first, and then reposition to clear the entry behind. Once that's clear, he can go back to the front and attack from there. That's only if the vantage point is compromised. But I do want to talk about a little bit of architecture function in terms of comfortability. It's not completely discarded here. There's definitely some things here. Well, for example, you have a fabric that's being cast over this, right? And it's being connected to these tusks. By the way, tusks, I think, are a really good material in terms of defensive position. Like, it's not combustible, all right? But wood is, but this is actually pretty good. But in this case, it's only really being used as an ornament, right? To represent orcish architecture. I don't think it's providing any other benefit. While you have spikes here that prevent flanking or climbing to the bunker, these are too far high up to provide anything meaningful aside from providing the height required to create that roof. Which in this case, let's talk about this roof a bit. It's really strange that it's pitched, and it's more suspicious that, well, how is it pitched? It's a very starchy material, which I don't think they're able to. I think it's just there. It's just animated like that, but I don't think it's working. But you don't even need a pitch in this environment because it's not gonna rain. So it is working in this regard. So you don't need a pitch. Even if it was flat, it is totally fine. And the reason it would be fine is because the only thing that it's providing is the shade inside. And you can see it from the movement here. And one thing I'll do say that obviously there's some flaws here. Like when the sun is like in its lower position, this will get a lot of heat, and you can see it. This is just really quick and dirty way of doing architectural function, like comfortability, and you can see that happening in here. Again, it's not the priority of the structure. The priority of this is architectural advantage tactically rather than thermal advantages, right? You can see the sun going in. If a person is here, it's not providing anything else. But again, it's not. But I do want to talk about this because it does provide, it does have some level of comfort architecturally. Again, it's protecting against the sun, not all of it, but most of it. You can see the shade inside. He's standing in shade, so that really helps. The rain is not an issue, so pitching it wouldn't be necessary at all. See, this is what happens is when you do something quick and dirty, architecturally, it does impact other parts of function. For example, if you bring firecasters in and they cast a fire, this thing is gonna lit on fire. Okay, that in turn will put these ropes on fire, and that in turn will fall down and set these wood on fire, and you immediately lose that advantage. That's why using material like wood and fabric or structure like this wouldn't make sense, right? It would have been just better to have a sheet metal like these trims inside, since they're light, they're not too bad, and obviously they're heavier than fabric, but you still have a lot of protection. Like if these guys have machines like this, catapults, right? Others might have it too, and sheet metal like the one at the trim here would give you better protection than this. So tactically, it works in certain locations, but not all. I don't think it's working completely. And this is something that's really crucial to understand about architecture, is that it's more than just about the comfortability of the structure itself to the occupants. It's also controls how people maneuver within a space. And that's so important. And here you see that perfect tactile advantage because you can use architecture to give the environment the defensive tactile advantage that a person needs. For example, if you look at the train, it's flat. It doesn't provide any natural chokeholds. It's out in the open. So what do? You use architecture to create those advantages, right? So the structure is dug in. You create a platform, and you basically use architecture elements to give you the advantage or give you the military advantage you need to succeed in any attack. So again, this bunker is not just quick and dirty orc architecture. It's very strategic, and that's the layer of complexity we spoke about, that extra layer of tactical that is added, which makes this function differently than anything else. Yeah, so it's not pretty, it's not perfect, but it's the closest thing to a functional military defensive structure that I've seen in Barrens so far. What orcs often do with raw intimidation, this bunker does with intentional terrain use, forced movement, and defensive positioning. Still, that cantilever makes me nervous. If Centaur brought a siege weapon or even just a few aggressive firecasters, I'm not convinced that that roof would stay up. Boldness without redundancy is just a weakness waiting to be tested.